Good morning, Patriots. How you doing today? This is Mike the Patriot coming to you live from the downtown metropolis. Got a cough drop in my mouth of LaMonte, Missouri. I hope you guys are having a great day wherever it is you are at. Apologize about that. That first little video, guy named his Roomba Joe Biden because all it does is wander around aimlessly and sucks. Hope you guys are having a great day. Look, as you're logging in, make sure you go follow me on the other socials. All the socials are in the description section right here. Wherever you're watching this, just hit the description section. Go on there, check it out. And if you're watching me and you're going, and you're on Rumble and you're going, where's all the chat on Rumble at? Well, if you're watching on your TV or something like that, you probably can't see the live chat room. But there is a live chat room if you've created an account. If you haven't created an account, then you can't. And it's free to create an account. But there's a live chat room that you can go watch all the chatty folks chat away. So just letting you know. And also in the bottom live chat room, little tip jar if you feel so inclined. And also on the Facebook socials, you can leave stars. And that helps out a lot. I appreciate very much. But as you're checking in, let me know where you're watching from. Make sure you hit the thumbs up button. The thumbs up button, I'm doing it right now for myself. The thumbs up buttons help spread the word around. And when you react, especially on Facebook, when you react, whether it's the thumbs up or the heart or the smiley face or even the angry face, doesn't matter. When you comment and when you share and when you tag people, it raises the awareness on Facebook, even though they're trying to suppress it. And over on Rumble, the whole thing's based upon the little thumbs up button, the little Rumble button. So if you'd hit that, I'd appreciate it. There's a couple trolls out there. They don't even watch the show. They just don't like me because they're trolls. But anyways, as you're logging in, I see you checking in. Spokane, Washington, early this morning. That's what I'm talking about. Boy, the sun ain't even up out there. We got Ohio checking in, Kentucky checking in. We've got, let's see here, Oklahoma checking in. Oklahoma for you unenlightened people. Let's see what else we got here. We got Salt Lake City's checking in. We're checking in from all over the place. People are laughing at the Roomba. Louisiana's checking in. Sweet Home, Alabama, Ohio is checking in. Michigan, Kansas, Canada, all checking in. Dalton, Georgia, checking in. Iowa, checking in. Kentucky, checking in. Scripture of the day is John 7:16 through 19, thanks to Marine. And let's see, we got Indiana, Chicago, Pink, Oklahoma, Pennsylvania, Florida, and Cowpens, South Carolina. From El Salvador, holy moly macaroni. Must be on vacation or something. Northern Nevada, Florida, New York, Ohio again, checking in from all over the place. From Sedalia, Missouri, I apologize. That's like Rio Linda. Actually, I think LaMonte would be real. Anyways, going on. It's all good. It's all good. Why are you living in LaMonte? Well, frankly, I'm tired of the crap in the big city of Sedalia. All the bull crap they're pulling on people. That's why I'm living in dumpy old LaMonte. Now, here's another funny one. This is John Rich, and I think he's on, I don't know, he's on one of the podcasts. I don't know if it's Tim Pool Show or another one, but he's on a podcast, and he's telling a story about Nancy Pelosi and gun control.
I have a story about Nancy Pelosi asking me about guns in the backyard in Beverly Hills.
Really?
You'd like to hear it?
Absolutely.
I know, right? That got even that your attention. Yeah.
Let's hear it.
So I'm back there. I got invited to sing at Tony Bennett's 85th birthday party. And I'm in the backyard of Ted Sarandos, the founder of Netflix. I'm in his backyard. There's John Travolta. Queen Latifah and I are bringing out the birthday cake. I mean, you can't make this up. I'm looking around this backyard going, I'm not supposed to be here. So I'm just going to have some fun. You know, no, one of these things is not like the other. So I'm back there and I'm hanging out and I see Nancy Pelosi over there starts making a beeline towards me. And I'll be honest, it was frightening. It was frightening. She's coming and she walks right up to me. She doesn't say hello. She goes, "You seem like a reasonable person." I guess meaning for a guy in a cowboy hat and a handlebar mustache, because otherwise you wouldn't be at this backyard, right? You must be you seem like a reasonable person. I said, "Well, I appreciate that, Madam Speaker." She goes, "Can I ask you a question about guns?" I said, "Absolutely."
Oh, yeah.
So Vince Vaughn is standing there and Vince leans in. Travolta's got his arms crossed. He's leaning in.
Great, yeah.
Everybody's leaning in. And Pelosi goes, "Now, I'm not a hunter, but I'm pretty sure that if I shot that first bullet at whatever I was hunting and I didn't hit it, it would run away." I go, "That's correct." She goes, "So why does anybody need more than 7 rounds," is what she said. "Why does anybody need more than 7 rounds in their gun?" And I held up my cell phone. I said, "Well, Madam Speaker, right now back in Nashville, Tennessee, I have a wife and I got a 3-year-old son and a 5-year-old son. And we live right in the middle of town." I said, "Now, if she called my phone right now and said, 'John, I hear footsteps coming up the stairs,' I said, 'Madam Speaker, would you advise me to tell my wife to grab the one with 7 rounds or the one with 30 rounds? And her eyes kind of got big and she said, "Is that the way you look at that?" I said, "Yes, ma'am." She goes, "Well, it was nice to meet you," and then just walked off. But for a brief moment, this light bulb pops. I believe, first of all, they know that anyway. That's why they all have armed guards.
Yeah. Yep.
But I was able to, dead in her eye one time, say it's to protect our families. Of course, we don't need 30 rounds to hunt a deer, and there's nothing in the Second Amendment about hunting. It's all about defense.
Good for you.
So there's John Rich telling a story about Nancy Pelosi and guns. And of course, Nancy Pelosi, she thought she was going to get this guy. That didn't work out. There's one more. Here's a guy whose daughter had an event at school where they searched her belongings and her phone because supposedly she was bullying over a furry. And this guy's got a great point. I think it's hilarious. Here we go.
So today I found out that my 12-year-old stepdaughter and some of her friends in 6th grade were investigated by the principal because they apparently were engaged in bullying. And I was like, "Whoa, what's going on?" Well, they told me that they had a student in their school that identified as a fur baby. And they were concerned because, you know, as we're taught, we must accept everyone as face value as to who they are and treat them as they identify. So naturally with that, they were concerned because, you know, San Diego is the 6th highest county in terms of rabies cases per year. So they were just simply asking about what the potential exposure risk was of them contracting the, you know, disease. It is fatal. You know, we spent 3 years worrying about fatal disease, but nonetheless, the school then went through their phones, deleted their text messages, forced them to go into the recovery area of their message app and delete that so it couldn't even be recovered out of it, all because they were concerned that they could contract rabies, which is what the school taught, I thought. So the biggest issue here is that the he, she's, they, zims, or ye, ver, ter, whatever, sorry if I missed any on the list, doesn't even tell them what species they are. So I'm going to write a letter to the school and ask. I want to know. Because, you know, there's certain furry species that are higher in, you know, rabies carriers than others. So we're going to do that. And I also want to get a copy of the Animals on Campus policy to make sure that they're following the rules. And they're also never going to violate the 4th Amendment again. So we'll see how this goes.
So somebody claiming to be a furry, and he's like, "Wait a second, has the furry had its rabies shots? What's your policy of having animals on campus?" And because supposedly of bullying, they raided this little girl's phone. Well, guess what? I've told my daughter, they want to see what's the contents of your phone. Keep it locked. Get a warrant. You're not allowed to see what's on the phone till you get a warrant. That means that you have to go before the judge and explain to the judge that there's a furry in the school, and the kids, we think, we're questioning whether or not the furry had its rabies vaccination, and that's bullying. So we want a warrant to go look at their phone to see if they were bullying. Yeah. Take that to the judge. A leash law. Yeah. They can have whatever feelings they want to have, blah, blah, blah. No, they can't. No, they can't. No, they can't. Let them wear a Donald Trump shirt let them wear a Let's Go Brandon shirt to school. They can't have whatever they want. There's standards and rules, and we should follow them in all cases. And look, I wouldn't let my daughter wear a Let's Go Brandon shirt because to some people that's offensive because it represents words. I don't think it means that. I think it means the cover up of the media blatantly to your face of telling you one thing is what it isn't, because what happened with Let's Go Brandon, if you don't remember, it was the second tier NASCAR race. I don't remember what I used to really be in the NASCAR, but since they went woke, I haven't really followed them. But there's used to be the Winston Cup, and then it was so that tells you how old I am, right? Back when it was good racing, and the second tier, and this guy named Brandon won the second tier race, and the info babe was interviewing him, and the crowd in the stands, I think it was at Daytona, the crowd in the stands was chanting, not Let's Go Brandon. It was Affinity. Thank you. They used to call it the Bush Cup, the Bush series. But anyways, moving on. And while the crowd is in the background and you can clearly hear it on the microphone, she goes, "Oh, the crowd's saying, Let's Go Brandon. Isn't it wonderful?" So the statement, Let's Go Brandon, isn't about the FJB. It's about the media telling us that it's cold when it's hot, that it's hot when it's cold, that the sky is red and the grass is blue, and they're telling us that neo-Nazis burning Christians in Ukraine is not what you see. Those are not Nazis. Nazis are actually people who believe in small government. The media telling us, basically blowing smoke up our rear end and calling it rain. I mean, really, it's what it is. That's mixing metaphors, and I did it on purpose because that's what the media does. Blatantly lie to our face, and that's what that expression is about. Speaking of, the media is going around telling us how great the economy is, how everything is wonderful, everything is awesome, nothing to see here, except little things keep popping up here and there and everywhere. This is from Simply Bitcoin. This is breaking. CEO of SSBC warns the world is at the tipping point on debt tight, threatening a global reckoning. HSBC is a massive bank. Get on the lifeboat. And it's talking about the debt, how high the debt is. It's not just our debt. It's not just the federal debt. It's debt everywhere in the West. You know who's getting rid of a bunch of their debt? Russia. You know who hasn't? China. China's in the same shape we are. More on that in a minute. But we are in a pickle because the Fed has been playing a shell game with our money for so long that they're at a point now where they don't have a choice. You could go one way or you can go the other way. You could lower interest rates, bring everything back down to 2%, 1%, 0%. But then again, that's going to cause massive hyperinflation. Because you can't, because the reason, well, let me back up a little bit, or they can continue to raise rates, which will destroy the economy and put us into a Great Depression. So we either have hyperinflation, Great Depression, or stagnation, Great Depression. But either way, remember they kept telling us that this was going to be a soft landing, that the recession was going to be a soft landing? No, it's not. No. It's the Bugs Bunny cartoon with the gremlins where he's in the plane going, hoo, hoo. That's what it is. Only problem is we won't run out of gas before we hit the ground. If you've seen it, you would know. We are in trouble. I don't care what they tell you. I don't care what Kramer says, all that stuff. Here's the deal. Our economic system is going to collapse and reset. It happens. It has happened since the founding of man. Financial systems do this. The people are like, oh my gosh. It's not a surprise. There's a reason that more millionaires were created during the Great Depression than any other time, because some people faced reality. And they knew what was coming because they opened their eyes and saw it. And they prepared. And they were able to buy things. When people are panicking and dumping and selling, you buy. When people are buying and all of that stuff. Aaron says he's got a big show tonight. That'd be on Real Deal Media. Go check it out. Real Deal Media. What time's your show tonight, Aaron? Like 10:30 Central Time or something like that. Just go to Facebook, type in Real Deal Media, and then you can get where all the other, they're on Rumble, they're on, I don't know, several other places. I think realdealmedia.com or something like that too. 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time if you want to catch his show. And so, anyways, what was it talking about? Oh yeah, the collapse of society. Isn't it wonderful? Anyways, let me get off my high horse and let you listen to, because I've got a video. This is from yesterday. It's Peter St. Onge talking about the Fed's worst nightmare coming true, because there's nothing they can do about it, because they could either lower interest rates or raise interest rates to try to stop what's coming. The problem is that they printed all the money. The printing of the money is the problem. The fiat currency is a problem. Fiat currencies fail every time, every single time, every time they fail. Period. So it's going to reset. The question isn't if, it's when. Now, they've been manipulating and kicking the can down the curb, but it's going to reset. All right, here we go. Here's Peter St. Onge talking about interest rates and the Fed's worst nightmare coming true.
Fresh data says the Federal Reserve's worst nightmare on inflation is coming true as inflation expectations are leaping at the fastest pace since the worst of the post-COVID inflation. The widely watched University of Michigan survey showed Americans' expected change in prices during the next 12 months jumped by over half a point from 3.2 to 3.8%. That is the biggest jump since 2022, when prices were just starting to come down from the $6 trillion COVID lockdown spending orgy. I've mentioned in recent videos how for the Federal Reserve, inflation expectations are the big one. It's the one that keeps them up at night, because it means that people are baking in price hikes. They start asking for raises or negotiating inflation into long-term contracts. Or if they're a business, they finally raise their prices, which businesses are usually reluctant to do for fear of alienating customers. In other words, if expectations are rising, it is telling you the inflation is permanent. I've also mentioned in recent videos how the Fed sees inflation as a psychological operation. It prints as much as possible, and then it gaslights the public into either not seeing the inflation or failing that, thinking it is temporary or transitory in today's lingo. They conduct this deception partly through cooked statistics. I recently talked about the Big Mac as a shadow indicator of inflation, and they partly do it by promising that inflation will go away very, very soon, all in the hope that people mistakenly underprice their salaries, their contracts, and their products, taking one for the team for the Federal Reserve's money printers. It is an ugly little job wiping out the little guy, but somebody has got to do it. The problem is this means in recent years, inflation expectations have consistently been too low, by a lot. For example, during the peak of Biden's inflation, when CPI was bumping up close to double digits, inflation expectations among the public were just half that, at 5.5 points. So the American people were blindsided. That means even today's nearly 4% expectations are probably underestimating what is coming. After all, they're just 1.5 points below that peak of Biden's worst inflation. So true prices over the next year could be quite a bit worse than even what we are seeing today. So what is next? Brought to you by Unchained. None of this should be surprising for the Fed because they never fixed what's causing the inflation, which is out of control federal spending. In fact, that is getting worse, with the CBO now projecting $2 trillion deficits for literally decades. And so, with actual CPI, core CPI, and now inflation expectations also rising, we are getting more and more pieces fall into place for a replay of the 1970s long stagflation. Back then, it looked like a camel's back of rising prices, the burst of inflation followed by a few years of calm, and then a second, even worse mountain of inflation that lasted 4 years. In fact, that only ended with Paul Volcker's shock and awe rate hikes that took mortgages to 19% and took unemployment past 10%, and a crushing series of recessions that left American cities looking like sci-fi dystopias full of Charles Bronsons and Dirty Harrys. And Washington, as always, has nothing approaching a serious conversation how to end it. Okay, we'll be watching. See you next time.
So, like he says there, they're stuck between a rock and a hard place. And he's talking about the late 70s, early 80s when the inflation went through the roof like that. It was the only way to stop it. The difference was back then, we were a couple $1 billion in debt, not $33 trillion debt, not spending $2.5 trillion in 4 months. Nathan asks, when it resets, what will that look like? Well, it's a little tough to say because it depends on how the government reacts. We are entering, I've said this before, if you go and you read the book, The Patriot by Rawlings is his last name. I don't remember what his first name is. Go look at that book. Now, that book is a Patriot's Bible. It's, a genre. It's fictitious. But there's a series there's like 5 or 6 books in the series, and they all center around one event. They call it the crunch. It's called the money crunch. We are entering a money crunch right now. And in that book, what we see is around the world, countries start running out of cash. You see 99% of the currencies on the planet are pegged to the dollar. Even the Chinese yuan is pegged to the dollar. So they have to have dollars in their possession to keep their currencies afloat. Now, BRICS is trying to change that, but it hasn't happened yet. So what you see is you start seeing these economies around the world collapsing, their bonds failing, their corporations failing, and these countries will start throwing their dollar reserves or their treasury bills at the problem to keep their currency from collapsing. What that does is cause the dollar to collapse. And that's what you see happening in this fictitious tale is around the world, capital starts to dry up. Products can't be produced or sold. People get laid off. Now you have a self-perpetuating cycle. Inflation goes through the roof because nobody trusts the local currency and nobody trusts the dollar. So when somebody has something of value, food, bullets, fuel, whatever, they become less and less likely to let go of that value for whatever paper currency exists wherever you are at. And when that happens, that's when the failure of the system starts. As they keep telling us, our government, our money is backed by the good faith and credit of the United States of America. So what will it look like? Well, the system is going to collapse. The question is, what will come out afterwards? If you take a look what happened to the Russian ruble in the mid-90s, it completely collapsed, ceased to exist, and they issued a new ruble currency. Same thing happened in Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe's currency collapsed to the point that every $4 quadrillion, that's 1,000 trillion, a quadrillion is 1,000 trillion, for every $4 quadrillion that you have in the bank, they decided they would just trash their currency and they will exchange it for American dollars. So for every 4 quadrillion Zimbabwe dollars you had in the bank, they would give you 5 American dollars. The problem is, if the American dollar does that, there's nowhere else to go. So what are they going to do? Well, their solution is digital currency. They're going to create a digital currency. So we'll see what happens with the digital currency. That's why they want to go to that digital currency, is because they know that the Western system of fiat currencies through central banks is collapsing. Now, if that fails, I mean, it could be, if you read the book that I'm talking about, the whole system collapses, the whole society fails, and rule of law comes to an end. Governments around the world collapse. Everything's in free for all. War breaks out here and there and yonder. Well, that's another way that they can stop this from happening, by the way. When your currency's collapsing, another thing you can do to beef up your currency is have a war. Have you watched the news lately? So, I mean, what is it exactly going to look like? I don't know. I can't. There's so many different scenarios. Your guess is as good as mine. But locally in your neighborhood, if you live in the country like I do, you might not notice much at first. The big concern that you have to have is the runs. When people start running on the bank, when people start running for food, running for fuel, and society breakdown happens, that's when things get ugly. Hey, Mike, thank you for that. I appreciate it. He says, good morning, Mike and Patriot family. Coming in late today. I hope everyone has a good day. He's over there. Thank you for that. Over there on Rumble. So I talk about all that because Nico, see, it's starting to happen everywhere. This is Nokia is laying off 14,000 workers right now as their 5G services collapse. Oh, it's 5G. Yay. That's not what 5G is. When Q talked about 5G, that wasn't it. You got to stop believing the hypers. You got to stop believing the hypers. They're leading you in the wrong direction. Here's another one that shows what's happening. This is the kind of things you're going to start seeing more and more and more of. I work for one of the largest staffing temp placement firms in the U.S. across many industries, including legal, tech, engineering, office administration, etc. Business has been god-awful all year, and there's only signs of things getting worse. Now the temporary staffers are running. Look at this. Numbers are going down everywhere. When you look at these Fed numbers, it's going down. It's going down. We've lived under an environment where the government was paying people to sit on their hindquarters and employers couldn't find people to work. Now we're going to change pages because we're about to enter a season where government ain't got the money to pay you, and or what they've been paying you ain't gonna be worth anything because of inflation. And employers are going to be laying people off in droves. So for every one job, there'll be hundreds, if not thousands, of applicants. That's the situation we're going to find ourselves in. Will people be selling pencils and apples on the street corners? Well, I don't know. Drive by Walmart, they already begging out in front of Walmart. Just in, SEC charges BlackRock with failing to disclose investments. You know what you call this? It's what you call a cover-up. Because the next thing you know, FEC charges, fines BlackRock $1 million. They made $1 bazillion. Sean says that online sales were down 25% last month. Do you remember last year at Christmas time when FedEx and UPS were laying people off? That was not a good sign. FedEx and UPS usually hires a massive amount of extra help through Christmas. If they were laying people off, people aren't shipping stuff. And then there's this one. Now, this is what I wanted to get to. This is what I'm talking about in the crunch, in the fake tissues book, The Patriot, is the money supply starts drying up. Money supply starts tightening up. Banks can't get money to loan. Businesses can't get money for their businesses to grow. Consumers can't get money to buy and sell and do whatever. As the money supply starts tightening, that's where the problem is. How can we have a tightening money supply when they're printing money like there's no tomorrow? It's an excellent question. One I don't have the answer to. Somebody smarter than me would have to answer that. But basically, the money's evaporating. It's disappearing. It's going away. You know, it's kind of like they talk about the velocity of money. Okay. Money moves around. You know, you spend $1 at Walmart. Walmart pays a trucker to bring something in. The trucker stops at Buc-ee's and buys a soda pop with that $1. The Buc-ee's people pay the Pepsi guy. The Pepsi guy goes into Walmart and buys chips. Keeps going around and around. The velocity of money, how fast money moves, how fast money goes around. When we talk about running out of money supply, that velocity is slowing down. People aren't buying the chips. People aren't buying things. So things are starting to slow down, or more money is going to certain areas like food than it is going to other areas like durable goods because people need food and they can't afford to buy it. So here's a report on that. M2 U.S. money supply just logged its 10th straight month of contraction at 3.6% in September, the lowest period of money supply contraction since when? 1933. 1933. That's a couple of years ago. What was going on in 1933? Anybody remember? Anybody? Well, I'm sure you don't remember, but did you study that? 1933? Look at this graph. With this, you got the money supply. Do up and down, 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 up and down. What's this? That's when the government printed a god awful lot of money. You would think there'd be plenty of money supply. Where'd all that money go? You would think there'd be plenty of, but it's not, because what goes up must come down. Gary says, well, BRICS just dumped $18.5 billion in U.S. bonds. It's worse than that. It's worse than that. We'll get to that in a minute. We'll get to that in just a minute. because I've got something along that lines. There's something going on. The largest bond holder, U.S. bonds, Treasury bonds. Right now, U.S. Treasuries are trading at higher than they've been in, oh man, woo, yeah. 1 month U.S. Treasury bond is 5.4. 3 month is 5.4. 6 month is 5.6. 1 year is 5.4. 2 years is 5.0. 10 year is 4.9. They're doing everything they can to keep that 10 year down below 5. And 30 year is 5.049. Why is it like that? Because the only people buying our bonds is us. We're monetizing our own debt. Bad idea. That's Zimbabwe. That's Venezuela. That's most recently Argentina. That's what they did. They bought their own debt and it collapsed in around them. And it's coming here to a neighborhood near you. Now, here is what I'm getting to. Let's see if I can explain this accurately. It says China is experiencing a U.S. dollar funding crisis. Here we go. The contraction of the dollar. I told you it's going to start off with a smaller country. We've seen that. We've seen these small little countries go get in big trouble. England. We see some tricklings of it over there in Europe. Now China. Not a small country, by the way. Similar to the rest of the emerging world, Z is forced to visit PBOC and SAFE for the first time ever. I have to look those up. Yesterday, China's banking system was in free fall. So China has been forced to sell U.S. Treasury bonds and U.S. stocks to stem the decline in Chinese U.S. dollar balances globally and defend the Chinese RMB. China SAFE has been lending U.S. dollar balances to China banks, instructed to protect the Chinese currency. In a move reminiscent of South Korea's 1998, China is running desperately low of U.S. dollar balances. What happened in 1999, 2000? U.S. dollar balances due to its aggressive state-run market intervention. The Korean crisis was caused by the government hiding the fact that they were using their U.S. dollar reserves to prop up the Korean won by lending, quotation marks, lending them to Korean banks to maintain artificial exchange rates. Now, let's just pause right there and think for a second. They're lending money to the banks. They're lending money to the banks to keep their exchange rates up. America would never do anything like that, would they? Would America ever lend money to the banks to keep the money flowing? You think they would do something like that? Where have I heard that before? Where have I heard America, the Fed, lending money to the banks to keep the money flow up? Now, mind you, it's collapsing in China. Maybe it was this. Overnight repurchase agreements where they're doing $2 trillion a day for the last year, over $1 trillion a day for the last 2 years. And look at it, it's tanking. It's tanking right now. The money is drying up. Yesterday, it was $1 trillion, $97 billion. I was waiting to bring you this after it dropped below because I think it's going to drop. I think it's going to go back down to these levels right here because we're running out of money. The velocity of money is slowing down. They were doing this to keep the market alive. This is about the stock market. We're doing the same thing China has been. We're behind the curve with China, but we're doing the same thing China was doing. And now China's chickens are come home to roost, so to speak. And they got to pay the deal. It goes on to say, we are made on political grounds as opposed to economic grounds. In other words, they did all this not because, of course, we're doing the same thing because of politics. Because we got to keep this stock market up. We got to keep this economy going for Joe Biden. Bidenomics. The problem is it's a lie. And the problem is this ends in failure every time it's tried. Korea lied to the world about its FX reserves and suffered a 95% decline in its currency. Read 95% inflation. Just put that in your mind. We're at like, well, we're probably at 20%. But what they tell us is we're at 5-6% inflation. Imagine 95% inflation. 95% decline in currency, along with massive US dollars defaults across the corporate and government sectors. China is doing the same now with the RMB and HKD. Expect more forced selling of US stocks and bonds by Chinese institutions. Remember, in an angry knee-jerk reaction, Xi sloppily fired the head of the PBOC, that's their central bank, Yi Gang, at the 20th Party Congress in October of 2022. Yi Gang also lost his seat in the CCP's Central Committee. He was reappointed to the central bank head as a few weeks later, but fired him again in July of 2023. Just imagine how the world would react if we abruptly fired Jerome Powell, rehired him, and then fired him again a few months later. Xi is panicked. China is experiencing massive financial instability, both a liquidity and a sovereignty crisis. In China, real estate, which is immediately precipitated a banking crisis, given the levels of leverage to the property sector. Now, the level of leverage to the property sector in China pales in compare to that here in the United States. Be prepared for large currency breaks and additional global instability. Numbers to go down. Hong Kong and China cutting stamp duties for stock trading. Xi begging PBOC, that's their central bank, for a trillion RMB in stimulus. Fails like Country Garden and Evergrande. Country Garden just failed. Investors beware of panicked dictators. Their markets don't end up well. A nation doesn't go broke. A nation goes to war. And so we have lots of things happening that could cause war. Nations don't go broke. Nations go to war. The House Speaker race is on a different note. The House Speaker race is, well, a mess. House Speaker nominee winner, Majority Whip Tom Emmer, or not. Yeah, Tom Emmer emerged as the leader in the House yesterday afternoon, getting full support of nobody. Here is interviews from MSNBC of Republicans in the hallway, or at least one.
I can't go along with putting one of the most moderate members of the entire Republican conference in the speaker's chair. That betrays the conservative values that I came here to fight for. So I hope there's a change along the way. He doesn't have the support in the room right now.
PC Lancaster says, think about it. Our dollars is worthless. Why do we struggle so hard to acquire dollars? Because the velocity of dollars. The dollars are worthless, but they're not moving because people aren't spending them, or because they're going all to one place, food sector, something like that. That's why it's becoming harder. That's why it's becoming more of a challenge. So the speaker is a mess. And he stepped down. We'll get to that in a second. Don't get ahead of me. I know what I'm doing. Here is this it right here? This is Fox. Which one is this?
Stand just moments.
I voted for.
Just moments ago.
So yeah, here we go. This is it right here. Donald Trump comes out.
Just moments ago, former President Trump talking about the battle in the House over choosing a new speaker. We missed this part. Let's watch it.
Member, it looks like he's finished. Looks like he's finished. He was not a supporter. He was a writer. And it looks like he's finished, but we'll see. You never know.
Do you support anyone else for speaker, sir?
I'll let you know.
Former president speaking here in.
So he's saying it looks like Tom Emmer, whatever his name is finished. And he was, but we'll get to that. Don't get ahead of me. I'm playing how it scenarioed out yesterday. Here's some more.
I voted present. So you got to understand, you go through the alphabet. You start at A, and you move your way forward through the alphabet. By the time it got to the letter N, I voted present. I think there were 4 others, maybe 5 others. At that point in time, we already had upwards of 20 that said that they could not support Tom Emmer for speaker. And this was a roll call vote. This was no, secret ballot. This was everybody having the stand. And in the end, I think there were maybe 28 or so that stated they're going to choose someone else other than Tom Emmer. I think Johnson had some. I think Jim Jordan had the most with about 12 or 15. So this is we are again back to where we started. This is where we're at. So now you have 8 willing to step up and try to provide that leadership, and we're not there. So now what are we going to do? We're going to find another round. Let's go into the 3rd round of draft choices, right? And find people willing to do this again. I don't know.
Is it not the case that Mr. Emmer is going to decide whether to go?
If he wants to go to the floor, he can go to the floor. If we go to the floor, you know what I'm doing. I mean, make no mistake. I'll be nominating Donald J. Trump.
So you would definitely not vote for Mr. Emmer.
I will be going. I told Tom Emmer I won't be the one that would tank him, right? If he gets to 216, he could probably have me at 217. But when it gets to my name and there's 10, 12, 15, I think Donald Trump is their answer.
Why is so much opposition at this point?
I don't know. I mean, he obviously he's people are talking. He's had some issues with the former president. I think some of the comments that he's made in the past. I'm not going to get specific, but I think it's causing him some problems today. Why am I opposing him? I didn't oppose him. I just said there's no way. I don't see how he gets 217. I just don't 216. How's he going to do it? If anybody out here, you got an answer to that, folks? So you've got 20-something out there. What? You don't see anybody change their mind? Well, usually you change your mind when you go from a secret ballot to a roll call. The roll call, there were like 28 that said either no, someone else, present. How are you going to dwindle that down to 4 or 5? Well, I kind of like the idea of Donald J. Trump, quite honestly. He's the leader of our party. I've said that from the beginning. I'll continue to say it. We threw our all-stars out now. The top 3 we had with the speaker, with the majority leader, with Jim Jordan. Now we've got 8 others, great candidates, Mike Johnson, all these others, and we've rejected those. I mean, what are we going to do? Go down and just put everybody's name in the damn hat? Maybe for the first time in the history of our conference, we should consider somebody from the outside. I suggest, and I'll suggest it if we go to the House floor for a vote, that it is our leader, Donald J. Trump, for 100 days. 100 days. I told the president you may have to adjust your golf schedule, your golf game, because we'll be busy, but I think he would be willing to do it for 100 days.
So are you planning on staying?
With his relationship with him, I'm not going to discuss with you what I talked about with President Trump other than my idea to put him up here for 100 days.
So are you all planning on just staying in this room for now, or
I
is
guess
this going
so.
to break up?
We'll pack a lunch. Thank goodness my office is right across the hallway because I go back and forth and have me a good cigar every once.
So this guy is a proponent of putting Rush Limbaugh. Gosh, if he was still alive, he'd make an excellent Speaker of the House. Trump in. I don't know where I got that from. That'd be kind of weird if he was Speaker of the House. Be like, Dude. That would be weird. Here's Karine Jean-Pierre in the White House position that the House needs to get to work. Needs to get to work. Somebody was asking a question over there on Rumble. It's a question: should I invest in weapon stocks? If by weapon stocks you mean butt stocks, there's never a wrong time to buy another gun. I don't give financial advice because I don't know nothing about financial advice. But I would buy butt stocks. Yes, I wouldn't mess with anything else personally. That's just me. You know what I mean? Especially here in Missouri, where a person-to-person sale is non-paperwork. I'm just saying, person wants to buy a gun and they can legally own a gun and they can legally sell a gun. Then here's Karine Jean-Pierre on the White House, on the House situation.
To work with them in a bipartisan way to get things done. We see bipartisan support for the national security supplemental. That's important. And then we're going to be announcing our domestic supplemental. Look, we think it's important that House Republicans get their affairs in order so that we can continue to deliver for the American people. Yeah.
In the interim, in an urgent situation, in an emergency situation, who does the White House consider the leader of the Republican conference in the House?
Look, right now, as you know, there's the Speaker Pro Tem, obviously, right? So he is by default is there. But I mean, look, I mean, we say this. I know we say this ad nauseum. We were joking around with Kayla. Oh, I think it was Kayla. I can't remember on this. It is for them to fix, right? It is for them to decide who is going to be the speaker. Them meeting the House Republicans. They gotta get to work here. The American people is counting on us, and the president is doing his job. He's doing his job domestically and as commander-in-chief. We have to see House Republicans do their job as well. Thanks, everybody. See you Thursday.
So they need to do their job. We got to do something for the American people. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. The House needs to do their job, pick a speaker, so we can do for the American people. We've got bills to pass, don't you know? We have to spend $100 billion for the American people in Israel and Ukraine or something. Yeah. No, there's this. Look, what's happening here right now is God. God is stirring the pot in our government. And we're finding out names that we never heard of before of who is and who ain't. Here's Donald Trump. Here's Donald Trump and what he has to say about this guy that was supposed to get, Tom Emmer, that was supposed to be speaker, but couldn't get it done because, well, I think because American people said, oh no. Says, I have many wonderful friends waiting to be Speaker of the House, and some are truly great warriors. Right on Tom Emmer, who I don't know well, is not one of them. He never respected the power of Trump endorsement or the breadth and scope of MAGA, Make America Great Again. He fought me all the way and actually spent more time defending Ilhan Omar than he did me. He's totally out of touch with the American voters. I believe he has now learned his lesson because he is saying that he is pro-Trump all the way, but could never be sure. Has he only changed because that's what it takes to win? The Republican Party cannot take that chance because that's not where the American first voters are. Voting for a globalist rhino like Tom Emmer would be a tragic mistake. So as far as I can tell, that is not an endorsement. I might be a little off there in trying to fill in the gaps, but that sounds not an endorsement. Something tells me that they don't like this guy. I'm not sure. it's a little vague there that Donald Trump doesn't like this guy. But here is Newsmax breakdown of Tom Emmer, in case you wanted to know who this guy was.
Some think he's a rhino. You know, he was a contender for Speaker of the House up until about 20 minutes ago. He had to withdraw his name because, well, he had no chance because Donald Trump came out against him with a wild, iconic Trump truth. Let's go through it. This is what he had to say about Tom Emmer. I have many wonderful friends wanting to be Speaker of the House, and some are truly great warriors. Rhino Tom Emmer, who I do not know well, is not one of them. All right, what else? He never respected the power of a Trump endorsement or the breadth and scope of MAGA, Make America Great Again. A lot of these guys don't even like being called MAGA. He fought me all the way and actually spent more time defending Ilhan Omar than he did me. He is totally out of touch with Republican voters. And the Republican Party cannot take that chance because that's not where the America First voters are. Voting for a globalist rhino like Tom Emmer would be a tragic mistake. You know what I like about this? President Trump, he's popular, and that means power, right? Most politicians, certainly most ex-presidents, whether they want to be president again or not, they don't stick their neck out like this because, maybe what happens if he gets approved? He takes risks, Trump does, and he uses that popularity to get things done. I think it's terrific. One of the things I personally want from the next speaker, and a lot of folks in the conference, they want the January 6th footage. January 6th, right? We've heard a lot about that day. Why have they not released publicly all of that footage, which is really, when you think about it, our property? It is. Now, I know Kevin McCarthy gave it to Tucker, and Tucker did a great job. And we saw that the Horns guy was actually escorted around for a good chunk of the afternoon by Capitol Police. Totally changes the narrative of January 6th. That was very, very significant. I'm not sure. Tucker may have lost his job over that. I mean, Schumer was on the floor. U.S. senators were outraged, condemning him. Unforgivable, they said it by showing the footage. I am very proud that this show, and the liberals hated this, reported it more extensively than all of Fox put together outside of Tucker's show. Greg Kelly Reports, Newsmax's flagship show, provided the most promotion of any program with more than 37 minutes of coverage, a total exceeding what all of Carson's Fox colleagues provided combined, and it had to be shown. So, all right, I want the footage, and I think the next speaker should be at least at the very least
a moderate, let alone a lefty. I didn't want a moderate. I want a fire-breathing, compassionate destroyer. That's what I want. So here I kind of agree with this one. It says, I don't know about you, but I'm loving the current speaker. Doesn't allow money to Israel and Ukraine bills, though doesn't allow omnibus bills through. It's through, yes. Doesn't allow CR bills through. Seems to be the best speaker so far. The deep states hates him, and of course, he's transparent. You can see right through him. How about this? We just send everybody home. We're going to run out of money. By no, what are we going to do? There's not going to be any money. Government won't be able to function. Oh, my God, what are we going to do? We got less than 30 days to save America. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. If we don't save America, if we don't spend more money, spin, war, spin, war. By Thanksgiving, we're all going to die. That's right. If the Congress doesn't do their job by Thanksgiving and get another continuing resolution till just before Christmas, then the blood's going to come out of our eyes and our ears, and our heads will explode, and we will all die. So that's why we need to get a Speaker of the House before we all die. But breaking news, ladies and gentlemen, we have a person that they'll vote on for Speaker of the House, maybe today, maybe tomorrow. I don't know when. Breaking news.
This is Fox News alert. Congressman Mike Johnson has just been elected Speaker Designate to the Republican Conference. We'll continue to follow this ever-developing story, and maybe one day they'll have a speaker.
Who? Mike Johnson? I've never heard of him. So I went checking around. Couldn't find much on him. However, Steve Bannon War Room says this: Mike Johnson should not stop because the become the designate and go straight to the floor to vote tonight. And and then Grace Chung says Mike Johnson should not stop and come straight to the floor and vote tonight. And here's why: because we don't want to give the deep state, the McCarthys a chance to get a hold, an arm twist, and get the vote destroyed. Should have just went. They didn't go down and vote. They're going to vote sometime today or maybe tomorrow, next week, or next year, or whenever. I have a feeling that this guy's not going to go through either because too many people on the mega side like him. Also, the media report, Kevin McCarthy melts down after losing ability to handpick the next speaker. Floats plan to reinstall himself as speaker with Jim Jordan as assistant speaker, which there's no such thing. As according to two lawmakers who spoke with NBC, McCarthy is very frustrated that he is not able to handpick the next speaker. Amid the impasse, McCarthy is floating a plan that would reinstall him as a speaker and make Jordan a conservative Trump ally, an assistant speaker. According to three sources familiar with McCarthy's pitch. Asked why the idea, which lacks key details like how it would be enacted and whether it could even gain enough traction to happen, was being floated now, a GOP lawmaker replied, "We're desperate." Now, the mega ones aren't desperate. The deep state ones are desperate. They got a war to fight. While the idea might seem far-fetched, and it has not been pitched broadly within the GOP conference, is being discussed among some Republicans that after Emmer, the third GOP nominee, dropped his bid, a source briefed on the idea likened it to Speaker Pelosi and Assistant Speaker Kathleen Clark arrangement that the Democrats had. Did y'all ever hear about that when she was speaker? No, she ran that thing with an iron fist. Kevin McCarthy, Jordan assistant speaker, the source said. The two lawmakers described McCarthy as having a meltdown in the conference meeting today because they said he was losing his ability to handpick the new speaker. You see, what's happening here is that McCarthy and the people he controls and the people that control him are trying to pick your government for you. Except we ain't having it. Ain't having it. Ain't having it. Ain't having it. There are some patriots in the mix. Speaking of patriots, or lack thereof, breaking news yesterday. Lots of breaking news yesterday. CNN News, the trusted name in news. Live as ex-Trump attorney Jenna Ells pleads guilty in the election case in Georgia.
As an attorney who is also a Christian, I take my responsibilities as a lawyer very seriously, and I endeavor to be a person of sound moral and ethical character in all of my dealings. In the wake of the 2020 presidential.
Okay, let me stop right there. Let me stop right there and tell you something that's red flags to me. Whenever I go to a business and they got all over their signage, whenever somebody pitches me a network marketing company and says, we're a Christian-based company, when you lead with, I'm a Christian, I have to question that. I have to question that because look, I'm never going to lead with I'm a Christian. Now I posted on my bio on Facebook and stuff like that. Because if you can't figure it out by listening to me talk, if you can't figure it out by watching me, then it's just words. It's just words. And I want to remind you all of something. As she pleads guilty, she's not pleading guilty to anything. Just like Pal, just like the rest of them. She's pleading guilty to misdemeanors. I want to remind you something. She abandoned Trump and supported DeSantis. She's been a DeSantis fresh maker for almost a year. She's been on the DeSantis bandwagon. So just remember, that's who we're talking about. And she's a Christian. You know, when these companies would come to me, when people present to me, oh, you got to get involved in the XYZ distribution company. That's right. Be a distributor, get all these great products. You know, patriotism. There's one going around right now. Patriotism. You know, whatever you're leading with is what you're trying to sell. I talk about my product all the time, the liquid biocell. This company here is not a Christian company. It's not a non-Christian company. It's a company. Their main goal in life is to make money and sell good products. They say that right up front. Not a Christian company. Well, they don't even bring it up. That's what I'm saying. They say that their goal is to make money and sell good products. They sell good products and make money. You know, you got to put it in the right order. But they don't bring it up. They don't bring it up at their events. They don't bring it up at their corporate structure. They don't bring it up. Well, that's not our identity. But I have to ask you a question. If you lead with that, that's a company. You know, my car lot, God rest its soul, I always said it is not a Christian company. My car lot was not I was a Christian. My car lot is not a Christian company. When it died, it did not go to heaven. It didn't go to hell. It just ceased to exist. It was agnostic. But whenever people lead with that in a situation like this or any other situation, I have to question. I have to question it. I have to say, wait a second. You're trying to play on my emotions with your tears and your Christianity. Because when I read in the Bible and I take a look at what the real Christians did when they were persecuted and prosecuted, they walked into the arena and faced the lions singing praises to God, not copping a plea. Every one of those Christians that faced lions, all they had to do was renounce Jesus Christ and they would have lived. Either you stand for your principles, or you're just nothing but a compromised liar. Anyways, let's continue.
In the wake of the 2020 presidential election, I believed that challenging the results on behalf of President Trump should be pursued in a just and legal way. I endeavored to represent my client to the best of my ability. I relied on others, including lawyers with many more years of experience than I, to provide me with true and reliable information, especially since my role involved speaking to the media and to legislators in various states. What I did not do, but should have done, Your Honor, was to make sure that the facts the other lawyers alleged to be true were in fact true. In the frenetic pace of attempting to raise challenges to the election in several states, including Georgia, I failed to do my due diligence. I believe in and I value election integrity. If I knew then what I know now, I would have declined to represent Donald Trump in these post-election challenges. I look back on this whole experience with deep remorse. For those failures of mine, Your Honor, I have taken responsibility already before the Colorado bar who censured me, and I now take responsibility before this court and apologize to the people of Georgia. Thank you.
So here she is pleading guilty to a misdemeanor, or it might be a small felony, I don't remember which, of failing to sign some documents. Now, they had her on RICO charges. Where'd the RICO charges go? They're nowhere to be found. And mind you, she is a DeSantis supporter, not a Trump supporter. Now, the problem is, in 2020, this is what she said. You see, the internet's forever.
Yeah, it was absolutely shocking, Maria. And what happened is that at about 10:30 at night in that voting center location, the election officials told everyone to just go home, stop counting, and then 4 people remained behind. And you can see from the video that they reached under a table and took out 4 big boxes of ballots and kept scanning them through the night. And so this is what my co-counsel Mayor Rudy Giuliani described as the smoking gun. This verified the testimony that we already had from other poll watchers and other people who were there who said that they had to leave and that they described all of these irregular activities and the violations against the law. And importantly, I don't think anyone who is honest can actually look at this video and then all of the evidence that we've presented through the testimony of these very credible witnesses who are patriots just coming forward explaining all of the violations of the law that they've seen across these 6 states. And I don't think any honest person can look at all of this and say, yeah, this was an election that was conducted fairly. There's nothing to see here. Let's move on.
So which is it? Were you lying then or are you lying now? That's the question that I want to know. Because there's plenty of evidence out there. There's a plenty of evidence out there that things are bad, that things didn't work it out. Here is a little bit more. Says Jeba Ellis gets 5 years probation, $5,000 restitution, and 100 hours of community service. Cooperation with the state and no comms with media or co-defendants on the case in her plea deal. So there you get. That's what she got. She got, a slap on the wrist, and she's supposed to testify. She's going to testify against Trump. The problem is there's plenty of evidence out there that these voting machine, that there's irregularities, that there's questions. How did the prosecutor allow that plea bargain? Because the prosecutor doesn't have anything. They don't have a case. You don't go from 6 felonies, including RICO charges, to a slap on the wrist misdemeanor with community service if you have a case. They don't want these cases being tried and all this information coming out prior to Donald Trump. Because it'll make them look bad and Donald Trump to look good. But see, the problem is that there's plenty. Ron Wyden, Democrat, Oregon, 2018.
Biggest seller of voting machines is doing something that violates Cybersecurity 101, directing that you install remote access software, which would make a machine like that, a magnet for fraudsters and hackers. 43% of American voters use voting machines that researchers have found have serious security flaws, including backdoors. These companies are accountable to no one. They won't answer basic questions about their cybersecurity practices, and the biggest companies won't answer any questions at all. 5 states have no paper trail, and that means there is no way to prove the numbers the voting machines put out are legitimate. So much for Cybersecurity 101.
The vast majority of 10,000 election jurisdictions nationwide use election management systems that run on old software that is soon going to be out of date and ripe for exploitation by hackers, according to an exhaustive analysis by the Associated Press. Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan, Florida, Iowa, Indiana, Arizona, and North Carolina, among others,
Those states sound
are
familiar.
all at risk. Even the state of Georgia, which just passed legislation to buy new voting machines, is on track to buy equipment that suffers from this significant cybersecurity weakness.
Let's say the election is decided by a small percentage, and people in America don't think that the election was fair. The effect that would have on our 200-year experiment in self-governance, our democratic system would take a real hit.
Our elections weren't secure last week, and they sure as heck aren't secure this week. And anybody who says otherwise is either selling you voting machines or simply has a malicious intent towards our elections.
At one point in the Intelligence Committee, both sides seemed to agree that no votes were changed in the 2016 election. And I said, the experts I talked to say that until you have a forensic analysis of a vote, until you go in there and scrub the whole system, you can't really say that.
You can't really say that. I tell you, excuse me, I can't do the lisp with a cough drop in my mouth. As long as you go in there and scrub the whole system, we just can't tell. We just can't tell. We need to stick out the mouth. Stuffer and succotash. Yeah. Well, that video, mind you, will probably get me a demerit on YouTube. Let's hope. Because you're not allowed to talk about that. Only that's a Democrat playing Democrat in his own words when they were trying to say that Russia stole the election for Trump. Now, did any of those things that he talked about change? No, they fixed none of it. Here's his own words. At least 44 million Americans have no choice but to use insecure voting machines that have forced hackers salivating, foreign hackers salivating. Americans must move to paper ballots marked by hand until a system is adopted where every election that goes by is an election that Russia could hack, or China, or the DNC, or wherever. Voting machines that are connected to the internet are ripe for hackers who want to interfere with American elections. States are still able to ignore these new federal election security guidelines, leaving the votes of millions of Americans vulnerable. The shady third-party voting... I'm sorry, I can't do it. I was going to try to read the whole thing in his wisp, but I'm not going to. These shady third-party voting machine manufacturers have proven they cannot be trusted to protect our elections. This pattern of state and local governments bankrolling election systems and millions of taxpayer dollars that leave our democracy vulnerable must end. You know why they were doing this? You know why they were putting this all out there? Because they were afraid that Donald Trump was going to win this next election. They thought he was going to win 2020, and they were setting up the scenario to come back and challenge the election with all these bad voting machines. At the same time, they were preparing to steal the election. So it was the most perfect election that we've ever had. Even this Ron Wyden guy was out. I don't have video of it, but he was out there talking about how great the election was. It was perfect. It was terrible It was horrible what could happen, but it's perfect now because we won. So I need to take some of the bass out of my voice. I can't do it, especially not with my little throat thing going on. Can't do it. So there's plenty of evidence that the elections were interfered with. Whether or not there was enough to overthrow the election is yet to be determined. But that they were interfered with, they absolutely were interfered with. There's no doubt. Here's a tweet from yesterday. It says more than 300,000 ballot transfer forms missing in Georgia's 2020 election. So election fraud is an established fact, no matter what Jenna L. pleads. Right. Now, here's something. Here's something that is interesting. Raheem goes on to say, hint, Jenna pleads because she knows she was the one feeding random info to Trump without having proof of it. Jenna flipped on Trump. Jenna went with Deep State DeSantis. Why? You can allege an election was stolen, but Jenna presented specific claims to legislators that she was unable to prove. Those claims belong to her. This is Raheem. He was in the Trump administration. He's talking from the inside. She's a deep state op. Jenna Els is a deep state op. She was put in, just like we got the stinking mythology, Patriot mythology podcasters out there that you all love and follow all their conspiracy theories. She was the same thing. She's just like them. She was put in there, put out some truth, put out some good stuff, do some good things, but every once in a while, put out a little bit of chaos, a little bit of destruction, plant some seeds so that later on they can use her against him. And here we are. This is what they do. This is what they do. This is the whole entire Republican Party. Here is Kash Patel on Tim Pool's show.
Result of the two-tier system of justice that's been built in this country. It's one of my biggest grievances in government gangsters. And it's not just in federal court, it's in state court. And what Tim said was they flipped. That's the key for me is, okay, what did they flip on? But what they're doing is they're going out to the New York Times and saying, ooh, we got Trump's 3 top lawyers. And as a guy from Trump world, I'm telling you, these people barely did anything for the boss. And he came out and announced that Sidney Powell wasn't even his attorney. Yeah. So what they're doing, though, publicly is they're saying, 3 Trump lawyers have now pled guilty to the election fraud scam case run by Donald Trump. They're trying it in the public. They're trying to get more and more dominoes to fall so that when Trump gets to court in Georgia, finally, whenever that is, they're going to say, oh, 14 defendants have pled guilty. You must be guilty by association.
Where there's smoke, there's fire.
But where's the evidence? Because if they had it, this is the thing about the New York Times and these corrupt prosecutors. If they had a recording, if they had, the I got you moment, the kill shot, it would have leaked.
This is the evidence.
No, but that's what I'm saying.
When they begin filing 14th Amendment challenges to Donald Trump's 2024 candidacy, they're going to say, the court judge will say, what's your evidence? Jen Ellis and Sidney Powell confessed. We have confessions, Your Honor. We have several confessions.
That Colorado case.
I mean, if they hadn't, to your point, if they had an ace in the hole, they wouldn't offer the plea deals. They would want every single person to go down for as long as possible.
As a prosecutor, I was like, I don't want to, you're not going down for 5 years. You're going away for 40.
But I mean, they don't have anything.
Right. Your point.
What was the maximum, if she had gone to court and tried her luck, what was the maximum sentence she would have gotten?
I think it's probably 20 years because it's a RICO conspiracy. So
would all the sentences be concurrent?
No, it's up to the judge. Yeah, not at all. Like you could stack them, you can hold.
She had 2. She had two charges.
Yeah,
so RICO
you can make them consecutive. So It's a total crapshoot. But that 14th Amendment thing, this is just another like hysterical thing. Has anyone read the first sentence of the 14th Amendment? I know you guys have, but it says these individuals shall not, and it names the vice president, the senators, the members of the House of Representatives in lower level offices. You know who doesn't name? The presidency. The 14th Amendment, by its first sentence, doesn't apply to the presidency, and we have all these freaking lawsuits around the country trying to disbar, or whatever the word is, get Donald Trump off the ballot, which is hilarious. And this boondoggle in Colorado, I think, just forwarded the case on to say, oh, this issue is ripe for decision-making because people are talking about it publicly.
So Section 3, I believe, correct?
Yeah.
No person shall be a senator or representative in Congress or elector of president and vice president or hold any office, civil or military, under the United States or under any state who is having taken an oath as a member of Congress or an officer of the United States or as a member of any state legislature or as an executive or judicial officer of any state to support the Constitution shall have engaged in insurrection, et cetera, et cetera. So vice president and president are not in here. It says elector of vice of president and vice president. Exactly. The president is explicitly not
in there. What do you think? The founding fathers just forgot?
Well, I mean, this was Civil War era.
No, I know, but like they were contemplating, what if we have to kick out these people from office? They contemplated kicking out the president, and they said, no, that power is not going in the Constitution. I mean, that was their decision. Hasn't been overturned in 250
so then
some years.
Where does this all go? I mean,
Supreme Court. I mean, all of it.
Yeah, but I don't see the Supreme Court right now siding against Trump on this matter.
No, it's not. But it's going to take like 3 years.
I was going to say, how long will it take?
Drain resources.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, look, they're doing it to like I've spent $500,000 in attorney's fees on January 6th subpoenas, special counsel subpoenas. I'm just one of the guys. I mean, this is what they want you to do. Cop a plea, bend the knee. We'll give you the book deal. You know, Cassidy Hutchinson goes out in the world and lie. Literally, it's hilarious to me that her most promising statement of truth was President Trump reaching through the beast and trying to grab the steer. Have you been in the beast? I have. There's bulletproof window between the driver and the car part of where President Trump, was she Hulk? Did she punch through the glass window? And how did she see Trump, right? And how did she even see it?
If someone told me that Donald Trump got really green and big, and then I have to believe that.
I think bulletproof glass just gets out of his way. They're too scared.
So he's the new Chuck Norris. So
right.
There's a Diet Coke.
Yeah, Donald Trump's the Hulk. So you see what's going on here, right? People are asking, what does she make? Well, there was a $250,000 donation to her campaign fund. I'm not sure which campaign, but she's got political aspirations. She's got political aspirations. Promises were made to her. Promises were made. A promise made is a promise kept. We're going to get a little bit more on that, but first, go check out my product. Don't go away because we got more to talk about that. Check out my product, the Liquid Biocell. If you haven't done so yet, why not? This product has changed my life, and it could change yours too. It is a collagen HA matrix technology. It's one of a kind, nothing like it on the planet. And it goes out and it helps you with the snap, the crackle, the creaking, and the pop. You know, as you get older, when you're 20, you feel like $1 million and you go out and do stupid things. And when you're 50, you pay for the stupid things you did when you was 20. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah, I'm sure you do. When you get up in the morning, oh, yeah, that thing, right? Oh, yeah, that one right there. That's what I'm talking about. This improves your joint mobility and lubrication. It supports cardiovascular health, which is not a bad thing right now. Improves skin hydration, firmness, and tone. You would believe how much I have to clip my nails. It's ridiculous. If you got brittle nails, this is stuff for you. But what collagen is a building block of life. You need collagen for your body to replenish itself, to lubricate itself, to make your hair grow, to make your skin more elastic, to make your nails stronger, all that stuff. Collagen's a building block of life. It is a supplement of supplements right now. Everybody's got a collagen product. Well, this product was one of the first on the market. And it's multi-patented, sold around the world. It's a money-back guarantee. You got everything to gain and nothing to lose. All you have to do is go over to the Patriot Mike Show fan page on Facebook. While you're there, subscribe. Scroll down to the pinned post at the top of the page where my wife's eating the chocolate sauce, makes your pants fall off. Comment that you want to know more. We'll send you a link. It'll save you a few bucks off your first purchase. You can go in there. We're not going to require any information. You don't have to sign up to find out what it is. It's a completely open book. You go in there. You pick your product, you tell us how you're going to pay for it and where to ship it to, and you get the product. A money back guarantee. Like I said, you don't have to sign up. It's great. The product that my wife's taking there is called Trim. Whoa, where's that coming from? I don't know if you're hearing that or not, but I'm hearing it. I doubt you guys are hearing it. I got something popping up on my screen. Anyways, go over there, comment that you want to know more. We'll do it. If you don't want to do that, I'm being interrupted. There's something playing in my ear right now, and I don't know if you guys can hear it or not. If you don't want to go to Facebook or nothing like that, go to send me a text to 660-620-2644 or an email at patriotmikeshow@gmail.com. It's like a commercial popped up or something somewhere in the middle of my commercial. And we'll send you the link. Like I said, it's money back guarantee. You got everything to gain, nothing to lose. And don't forget about the OVA. The OVA is 3 series of pills. It is before, during, and after, and it changes the game for ladies as dealing with their normal PMS symptoms. My wife says it's made her a new woman. My mother-in-law says she can't believe how much better she feels. And several women have sent my wife, they don't send them to me, they send them to my wife. They don't want to talk about these things with me and about how much this has changed their life. So if you are needing that, check it out, ladies. Same thing, 660-620-6283. Everybody's saying they don't hear it. It must have been one of the windows I have open popped up with an ad just in my earpiece. So anyways, now back to the Kash Patel on Tim Pool as we talk more about Ellis and her betrayal of Mega.
So I hope several other states file criminal charges against her and she goes to prison for a very, very long time. Did you hear what she said? She confessed to trying to overturn an election, a duly elected Joe Biden. She confessed to doing it. Now, in all seriousness, I think it's fair to say she's opened the door legally by stating that in Georgia and many other states, she did this thing. And if there are other states in which Democrats have any kind of legal capability, they could charge her as well and then make her go through it all over again. The biggest mistake all of these people are making, in my opinion, is taking the plea deals. I've heard a lot of people say the cases against these individuals in Georgia is so weak that the prosecutors didn't want to go to trial. And I'm like, then you go to trial.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Then you say
that's the reason to do that.
Yeah. This shows she was terrified. And so I'll say this, just on the surface, if it is true that she and many others knowingly lied to commit this crime, then I think they're getting off easy. Otherwise, she genuinely believed she was doing her constitutional duty in providing a legal service to an individual who's seeking a redress of grievances, and now she is betraying not just that individual, but this country. So in that case, lock her up. See if I care. She'll get no defense from me. And not to mention, I mean, we'll get into it in a little bit, but like the hundreds of thousands of dollars she raised, a lot of people are really upset about this. You know, what does it mean to give someone's legal defense? She paid her lawyers with the money. Does it mean she's taking it all the way? Some people were saying she should take a plea agreement, but I'm curious what you think, man. I mean, you worked in the administration.
Yeah, look, as a prosecutor, as a public defender, the interesting thing about this entire case, I mean, put aside the fact that I don't think there's a basis to bring it, but let's put that on pause for a second. And the first 3 guys out of the gate that flipped are lawyers. And what does that mean? What did they actually do? Having been in the Trump administration and around the boss and literally talking to him every week, these guys didn't really do anything. So, okay, what are they going to say? Are they going to break attorney-client privilege, which they don't hold, President Trump holds, and say, and commit a felony and get disbarred and get prosecuted and just to say Donald Trump is guilty of X, Y, or Z? And they're not stupid people. I think the reason they pled guilty is they know the crimes are bogus, but they came in there with so many slews of felonies. So it's like, oh, you're looking at 85 years. Mm-hmm. We'll get you on 1. And this jury pool sucks. It's in somewhere in Georgia that is a county that is like 88% pro Biden. So they're going to get convicted. So they're just trying to stay out of jail, pleading to misdemeanors. But I would really like to, you know, and I also looked at.
No, that's a felony. I'm pretty sure Jenna Ellis was a felony.
She pleaded guilty to a felony?
I'm pretty sure it was a felony. And I because I was reading it and I thought it was
because Sidney Powell was like 6 misdemeanors, and they dropped all.
She's
her
the first one to go, though. I mean, they gave her the best deal.
Yeah. But
I want to check because the story I was reading earlier, I'm pretty sure she was the one that was a single felony, which was I thought was interesting. Yep. She pleaded guilty to a felony charge.
Wow.
So no more traveling outside the country. Good luck.
It's one count of aiding and abetting false statements and writings for stuff she said to the Georgia Senate.
No. If you commit a felony and it's in the favor of the Democratic Party, like Kevin Kleinsmith, the FBI attorney who lied to the federal court about CIA documents, he got reinstated to the bar last year and has a 7-figure job now.
Well, he's more trustworthy.
Right.
To them
So
now.
this is coming along with her book deal and her tell-all. And I think it's part of the process. It's why you heard from that White House intern who made her lies and launched her bogus book. But this is what they do. The media captures them and says, we're going to launch you to.
Part of me says I don't blame any one of these individuals for taking the deal because they all took the deal, right? It is a sign of the weakness of the anti-establishment faction in this country that they don't actually stand up for anything. And then you look at, we talked about this famous makeup artist, whatever her name was,
her line is Huda Beauty. I can't remember her last name.
She posts in favor of Palestine, gets a whole bunch of backlash, and she says, I don't care. Don't buy my products. I stand for what I believe in. And I'm like, man,
okay.
I mean, these leftists are willing to just sacrifice everything for their business, their company, their money. You've got a whole bunch of reports of people getting fired from their jobs. They don't care. It's always been this way. I mentioned this with BLM. The guy who worked at Taco Bell put on a BLM COVID mask, and they said, you can't wear that. And he goes, I refuse to take it off. And they said, if you don't take it off, you're fired. And he goes, fine. Goes outside, films a video and says, I got fired for Black Lives Matter. And then the company apologized. Oh, we're so sorry. What do people on the right do? They take a plea deal. What did Jenna Ellis do? She was a lawyer who was approached by a client who says, here's my argument. Can you draft this for me? And she goes, oh yeah, we'll go through it and we'll advise you on it. And that was it. She had one count under RICO and one count of, I believe, soliciting a public official or something like that. Two charges is what she was facing. And she took a felony plea deal, hundreds of thousands of dollars, and is crying. What I genuinely believe is that Jenna Ellis legitimately thought she was representing her client in 2020 and is now terrified and would rather sell you out, all of us out in this country so that she can disappear.
But this is a part of this is an established practice. If you're in Trump world and you're in Trump orbit and you get jettisoned for not doing your job properly, there not only is it a scarlet letter, it's an act of vengeance. Look at the gal that's on the not the Today Show, but The View, right? That's one example. The other intern that wrote the White House book. As long as you get jettisoned from Trump world and are willing to play ball, I guarantee you every one of these people has a book deal lined up, has a show lined up, and is now guaranteed not to go to prison. And like you said, they don't have any morals. They don't have any convictions. All they have to do is just say what they want, and they're going to be famous. They're going to go to Hollywood and LA, and people are going to put them on their shows, and they're going to be the greatest saviors of America.
If Sidney Powell, of all people,
Michael Flynn's attorney, I got to remind your audience, Sidney Powell was Michael Flynn's attorney who overturned that case.
And if she of all people will flip on Trump, why would anyone hold the line?
Yeah.
They just watched. It's like being on the battlefield and watching George Washington drop his pants and cry and run from the battlefield. I shouldn't compare her to George Washington, but I'm saying like a bunch of regular people are watching Sidney Powell go on TV and scream and bang her fist and say, I will not back down. The viral video for her saying, I will not be intimidated. And then as soon as they're like, we're criminally charging, he starts crying. She's like, please, I'll do anything you say.
This was a woman who was one of the people smiling in her mugshot, right? She presented this. She presented this intensity to an extreme degree. How can we have a country where we're saying, we're anti-establishment, you've got to confront the values here, you have to stick by these things, and then you have these people immediately turn? I mean, obviously it's what the Democrats want, but in some ways, to me, it really foils the motion that Trump filed today in his January 6th case, saying, you should dismiss the case because of First Amendment and double jeopardy. But one of the lines in the case was, under the First Amendment, Trump and his supporters have the right to question and doubt what the government tells them. And so this idea that she knowingly promoted false information, number one, did she know it was wrong? And under the First Amendment, doesn't she have the right to doubt it? I mean, it is sad to see someone who could have argued a really articulate message in court take the plea deal. I understand that there's pressure. On the other hand, if we're a values.
So if you caught some of that stuff in there, the reason I played that whole thing is I thought it was relevant. book deals, money transfers, promises made. It's all a bunch of garbage. They're a bunch of sellouts. They have no convictions. It's my Christianity. If you lead with that, it's not your Christianity. That's what you're trying to sell. If you lead with Christianity, it's not your Christianity. Because if you were a Christian, you wouldn't have to explain it to me. Now, this is under the they won't be able to walk down the street file. But Hillary Clinton got blasted. Now, I've got several different ways of explaining. I've got several articles. I've got several videos of this. But this guy does the best job. So here it is.
This is something you never get to see. An American citizen took the opportunity to speak truth to power.
This is free speech, everyone. This is free speech. That is not free speech. This is people constructing narratives that are openly hypocritical. I'm sorry. The incredible hypocrisy.
This clip is so important because it shows the true sentiment of the American people, that we don't want more, nor do we want to fund other people's wars.
It's a clearly warmongering speech. President Joe Biden is calling for $100 billion of funding for Israel, Taiwan, and Ukraine, and we're supposed to just bundle these together and pretend like we're going to rush to World War III.
And Hillary Clinton's reaction tells you everything about our ruling class.
Well, I'm not sorry. You sit down.
I know you're not sorry. That's the point. The hypocrisy of this speech, that the American people's voice are what need to be heard.
Yeah,
because,
they are being
because
heard. Our
president is not speaking for the American people, and
well,
neither are
that's
you.
Your opinion. That's your opinion.
Yes, that's my opinion.
But well, then sit down. We've heard your opinion. Thank you very much. Now we're going to
I'm
turn
not
to
gonna
people
sit down.
who are
I'm
on
not
the
going to
front
stop.
lines
I'm not going to stop
working on behalf of human rights.
These people are up on a stage talking about how they're fighting for human rights.
Now we're going to turn to people who are on the front lines.
I'm not going to stop
working on behalf of human rights.
I'm going to Clinton. Will you denounce Joe Biden? Will you denounce Joe Biden?
Human rights. Not just yelling about it.
This is what's so frustrating about these corrupt, manipulative, virtue signaling politicians.
So, Frank, I want to turn to you because you are from Uganda, and Uganda's 2023 Anti-Homosexuality Act criminalizes LGBTI conduct in Uganda.
Push us to World War III.
Oh,
please. Do you understand?
These people are up on a stage talking about how they're fighting for human rights, for gay people's rights. They care so much about humanity. And what is the person, the American in the audience saying? Hey, as an American, I don't want to fund the genocide and murder of people around the world. We are funding wars. We are exploding people's homes they're sitting in. And you're over here talking about gay rights. I'm gay. I care a lot about gay rights. But you know what's more important to me than gay rights? The ability to live, the ability for my fellow humans to live. I don't want my tax dollars destroying millions of people's lives. I went through the Iraq war fiasco. I watched 1 million Iraqis die with my tax dollars for non-existent weapons of mass destruction. And when this man gets up to you and says, hey, we don't want to make that mistake again, listen to me, you tell him to shut up and sit down. We're up here solving real problems on the front lines.
Every person on this stage has risked their life, their income, their reputation, their careers, and what have you done other than stand up and disrupt? I would put my record and these women's records and Frank's records against you any day of the year.
While you're sitting here patting yourselves on the back on some air-conditioned stage about how you're on the front lines fighting for human rights, you're destroying the livelihood and lives of millions of people across the globe. The hypocrisy is so appalling and outrageous. Of course, this is more important than whatever the hell you've ever talked about in your entire life. World War III is way more important than what Hillary Clinton thinks about herself, what those people on that stage think about themselves, or anyone else in government and politics thinks about anything. And the American people have had enough of it.
Yep. And I think it's going to get worse before it gets better. Here's Joe Rogan talking about something that came out from 2001 where they were planning on destroying 7 countries in 5 years. Listen to this.
This is a memo that describes how we're going to take out
7 countries in 5 years, starting with Iraq and then Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and finishing off Iran.
It's not like that plan was followed perfectly to a T, but a lot of it sure was. It's like insane that this was just said. And that's not just like if we didn't have such a corrupt press, how do they not talk about that every day? Every day. Like, why does that never come up? Oh, it's like, oh, as we fought all of these wars, no one went, but this is exactly what I heard Mr. 4-star General tell me was your plan. And you've never come to the American people and said, this is my plan. You're just like, so, and what's really interesting about it, right, is it just reveals this the way propaganda works. Because if you think about it, we start fighting the war in Afghanistan. We're in the war in Afghanistan by late 2001. It's not till 2003 we're in Iraq, right? And then it's not till 2010 that we're in Libya. 2012 we're in Syria, you know, and then in Yemen, then in all the, and it's like each time they had their own little propaganda story for why we had to go into this war now. And you're like, no, motherfucker, this was always planned. You decided in 2001 you were doing this. So don't tell me this is because Gaddafi's about to go genocidal, or because Saddam has weapons of mass destruction, or because Bashar al-Assad is killing his own people. It's like, no. This is just your latest little excuse now for the war that you already wanted to do. And that's how this shit really works, man. It's like they decide they want to fight these wars. Then they make up a bullshit excuse that they tell the American people. Then these weapon companies rake in hundreds of billions of dollars in profits, and babies get slaughtered. That's what really happens. Like innocent men, women, and children die, get exploded to death, starve to death, get displaced. Like it's just the most evil shit in the world. And we want to think of ourselves as a good guy.
So there was a plan. Afghanistan, Iraq, Libya, Syria, all the way up to Iran. It's always been about Iran for some reason. Ginger wants to know, did she do, meaning else, did she do anything, Jenna else, that indicates she isn't a Christian, other than lead with Christianity and portray her people? You know, when the pressure is on, when pressures are on for you to stand for your convictions, and you fail to stand for your convictions, do you have convictions at all? I don't know the state of her relationship with Christ. I'm just saying I don't trust people who lead with that. I mean, even my pastor who has his own business doesn't go around with his own. Now he goes around witnessing everywhere he goes. He's a walking, talking witness. But he doesn't go around with his business leading with, I'm a Christian, you should buy from me. I'm a Christian, you should do business with me. Well, she led in her plea with the tears that she's a Christian and she doesn't really do stuff like this. Well, as a Christian, I would have stood firm. Lock me up. As a Christian, that would have been my response. That's what we were just talking about on the Tim Pool. But anyways, back to this. We're on the war now. Warmongering. Warmongering. That's what we got going on around here. So there was a plan in place over the last 20 some odd years to take out all these Muslim countries. It's almost like we had this plan to have a new world order. And there were some nation states that were in the way of order. Here's Secretary Blinken before the UN pleading his case for war.
We're determined to prevent this conflict from spreading. This goes to the principal responsibility of the Security Council, maintaining international peace and security. A broader conflict would be devastating, not only for Palestinians and Israelis, but for people across the region and indeed around the world. To that end, we call on all member states to send a firm, united message to any state or non-state actor that is considering opening another front in this conflict against Israel, or who may target Israel's partners, including the United States. Don't throw fuel on the fire. Members of this council, and permanent members in particular, have a special responsibility to prevent this conflict from spreading. I look forward to continuing to work with my counterpart from the People's Republic of China to do precisely that when he visits Washington later this week. Now, it is no secret to anyone in this room or on this council that for years, Iran has supported Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, and other groups that continue to carry out attacks on Israel. Iranian leaders have routinely threatened to wipe Israel off the map. In recent weeks, Iran's proxies have repeatedly attacked U.S. personnel in Iraq and Syria, whose mission is to prevent ISIS from renewing its rampage. So, let me say this before this council, and let me say what we've consistently said to Iranian officials through other channels. The United States does not seek conflict with Iran. We do not want this war to widen. But if Iran or its proxies attack U.S. personnel anywhere, make no mistake, we will defend our people, we will defend our security swiftly and decisively. To all the members of this council, if you, like the United States, want to prevent this conflict from spreading, tell Iran, tell its proxies, in public, in private, through every means, do not open another front against Israel in this conflict. Do not attack Israel's partners. And we urge members to go a step further. Make clear that if Iran or its proxies widen this conflict and put more civilians at risk, you will hold them accountable. Act as if the security and stability of the entire region and beyond is on the line, because it is.
Now, have you ever seen two dudes in high school or college or whatever doing the chicken dance? You know what the chicken dance is? That's where they dance around with each other. Like they're going to fight, you know. What up, man? What up, man? Come on, man. Hit me, man. Come on, man. That's what we're doing right now. We're getting in Iran's face and saying, I dare you to punch me. I dare you to punch me. We're moving ships into range of their missiles. I dare you to try something. I double dog dare you, and I will beat you down if you do. It's almost like they want this to happen. Here's Israel's response.
I hear the call for proportionality. I hear the calls, as said Lynn before, for a ceasefire. Tell me, what is a proportionate response for killing of babies? For rape women and burn them? For beheading of a child? How you can agree to a ceasefire with someone who swore to kill and destroy your own existence? How? The proportional response to October 7 massacre is a total destruction to the last one of the Hamas. It is not only Israel's right to destroy Hamas, it's our duty. For Israel, it's a matter of survival. The free world should remember and never forget what happened on October 7th. Today, this barbaric terror hit Israel. Tomorrow, it will be at everyone's doorstep, doorstep.
Yeah, and we know it. We've already announced it. Worldwide, be on alert for attacks. Our government's already said it. Now, something he said there, I was watching somebody else, and he made a great point. He was arguing with the jihadi. They were hanging around the Agbu snack bar or something. And he made a great point. And that was this. You want a proportional response. So the correct proportional response for Israel is to send a bunch of soldiers, a bunch of civilians into Gaza and cut off the heads of little babies and slaughter people in their sleep, men, women, and children, up to a couple thousand, and kidnap a bunch of them. That would be the proportional response, would it not? You kill and slaughter 2,000 of us, we're going to come over and kill and slaughter 2,000 of you. Isn't that a proportional response? But as Rush Limbaugh used to say, at what point do you negotiate with abortion? If you believe abortion is killing of an innocent human life, if that's your stand, okay, where do you draw the line? 6 months? Prior to 6 months, kill the baby. 3 months, 2 months, 1 month, conception. The problem is, how do you negotiate against evil? Well, I'll tell you how God said to go negotiate against evil. He said to kill them all. He said to kill them all. I don't know if I put those in there. Did I put those banners in? I don't think I did. No. I was reading in Ezekiel, and Israel was screwing up badly. And God had had enough. So he called for some warrior angels. This is Ezekiel's vision, paraphrased by Mike. Called for some warrior angels. Said, come on down here. And they came down. And then one of the angels that appeared had a writing utensil. He ordered that angel to go through Israel and mark on the foreheads every person, man, woman, and child, who has grieved for the evil that Israel has done, who has cried out to God and said, you know, this is terrible. We can't do this anymore. How dare we insult our God this way? And then he ordered the other angels to go through and slaughter. Do not hold back every old man, every young man, every woman, and every child who does not have the mark on their head, and start in the synagogue. And it goes to say that the angels went to the synagogue and started with the old men in front of it. The sanctuary, starting the sanctuary, it says. God said, go out and kill those that don't grieve because of the evil being done in their country, starting in the church. That's God. Look, we fight warfare with these silly rules. Rules that we participate in, but nobody else does. And that needs to end. You know what we look like to the rest of the world? We look like this.
This is war. It is combat. It is bloody. It is ugly. And it's going to be messy. And innocent civilians are going to be hurt going forward. I wish I could tell you something different. I wish that that wasn't going to happen. But it is going to happen. And that doesn't make it right. It doesn't make it dismissible. It doesn't mean that we aren't going to still express concerns about that and do everything we can to help the Israelis do everything they can to minimize it. But that's unfortunately the nature of conflict.
And then he said, but see, so war is bad, and then people are going to die, and we're all going to die. Oh, bad. Oh, it's terrible. Oh, suffering. Oh, suffering. But, you know, it's necessary because we got to kill all the bad guys. We have a new world order to set up. Except when our bad guys that we've declared are winning, we say this.
It's hard to look at what he's doing in Ukraine, what his forces are doing in Ukraine, and think that any ethical, moral individual could justify that. It's difficult to look at the It's difficult to look at some of the images and imagine that any well-thinking, serious, mature leader would do that. So I can't talk to his psychology, but I think we can all speak to his depravity.
So when Russia does it, it's depravity. When we do it, well, it's collateral damage. Now, mind you, I was watching some videos. I don't have them. They were translated Ukrainian, and it was poorly done videos. But people in Ukraine are looking at what's going on in Israel and going, say, wait a second, that's not what's happening here. Russia is being very meticulous on how they attack Ukraine. Russia is depleting the Ukrainian military and by extension, the Western military in a war of attrition. But they're not bombing wholesale the whole country of Ukraine. One guy I was watching had his sunglasses, had white shorts and a white tank top sitting on a beach somewhere. It's all what's happening in Gaza right now. This isn't, I'm not coming against Israel. I think that what they need to do is what they need to do. But war is hell. And people die. And to sit here and be pompous and arrogant like the United States of America and act like our butts don't stink in war, but the other guys does. See, I used to believe in kill a commie for your mommy. I used to believe when I first joined the military back in 1989 that I knew who the bad guys and who the good guys were. Not so much anymore. Not so much anymore. Things are not as they seem. Things are not as they seem. We may not have been told the truth about all of this. As we watch things unfold, as we watch this administration self-destruct for our very eyes and take us down a path of World War III, you know, we need to cry out to our God that he intervenes, that some of the prophecies are true. I don't know who the true Israel is. Look, there's a whole bunch of patriots, so-called broadcasters right now, big names that are out there putting some crap out. Some of this patriot mythology, don't fall for it, about Israel. Israel, the apple of God's eye. That land is his land. He gave it to Israel from the very beginning. And there are plenty of real Israelis, real people of the 12 tribes living in Israel. Are there some shysters? Sure. Is there some deep state? Yep. Is there some World Economic Forum stuff going on? Yeah. Well, look at our country. Before we go trying to remove the plank or the speck out of the eye of Israel, we probably should remove the plank out of our own. Before we go worrying about the corruption of Israel, and is Israel the true Israelis, or are they the synagogue of Satan, when we got the synagogue of Satan in Washington, D.C.? Literally. We need to clean our own house. We need to get on our own knees and cry out to our own vengeful God, the same God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and say, have mercy on us, Lord. Don't treat us the way. Don't send your warrior angels to slaughter everybody, starting with the church. Have mercy. Thank God he can find 10. That's all I got to say about that. 10 righteous people. Thank God. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you need to read your Bible. You guys have a great day. It's time for me to go. I'm well over time. And I got stuff I got to do. You know how it is. Gotta make a buck here and there. Talk to you later. Patriot Mike is out.